First of all, good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Debbie Palacios, and I work with Family and Community Engagement Services, which is very long, so we go by FACES. We are a new department in the Clark County School District, but we've been kind of doing this for a while through Title I. We've just sort of been absorbed by this new department. So a lot of things that we do is come out to schools. One of the things we do is come out to schools and present parent workshops like this for you guys on different topics. And we're always looking for feedback as well. If there's something else that you're interested in, we can always come out again, either at a different time, at a different date, or with a different topic, just to really meet the needs of the school here. In the back is Becky, and she's another project facilitator, and she's going to be helping us out today. So any questions, since we're a small group too, as we're going through the presentation, feel free to stop me. It's a lot of information, so I do a lot of talking, but by all means, just raise your hand and I will pause for any questions as the presentation goes on. Okay, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about math and things that you can do to help your intermediate students, so any 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders that you may have at home. Just some different strategies and different ways that you can encourage mathematical thinking at home. We're going to go a little over the standards and kind of the nitty-gritty, and then we'll also do a make and take that you can take home, and you'll be leaving with a game that you can play with your children tonight that will help them with one of the math concepts we're going to talk about. Okay, so first, just to get a feel for the audience, how many of you have 3rd graders? Okay, how many of you have 4th graders? And 5th graders? Okay, excellent. And of course, they'll all get there, right? So our 3rd graders will eventually become 4th graders and 5th graders. So all of this is very important. And how many of you have heard of the Common Core standards and are familiar with them? Okay, excellent. So the Common Core standards, the standards really have changed within the last couple of years. The state of Nevada has adopted the Common Core standards. And just so you know, in case you ever hear what some refer to as the Nevada Academic Content Standards, they are the same thing. They are the Common Core standards, but Nevada has just given them a Nevada-specific name. So just in case you see that maybe on a flyer, or you hear about it, or hear teachers talking about it, they're the same. They're the Common Core standards. And the reason for the adoption of the Common Core standards is the idea that all of the states, or at least the majority of the states who have adopted the Common Core standards, would be on the same playing field. So for instance, if a student in Nevada were to leave 3rd grade here and go to 3rd grade in any other state where they have adopted the Common Core standards, they would be right where they're supposed to be, okay? So that's really important. Another thing that happened with the standards, with the Common Core, is that really everything became a little bit harder. So the rigor really increased as you know, colleges and businesses became more demanding. That kind of trickled all the way down to even our littlest kids. Okay, so before, standards that were used to be found in 1st grade are now found in kindergarten. So everything's kind of become a little bit increasingly more demanding just because of the world we live in. Okay, so basically. And we've heard this feedback from parents a lot. The 2nd grade and 3rd grade that our kids go to is a lot different than the 2nd and 3rd grade that we went to, right? So we just kind of have to keep that in mind. We're really, with Common Core, focusing on developing thinkers and developing those critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So today we're going to talk about that in math and kind of how that's translated into math. And finally, just basically, you'll hear this buzzword a lot, it's rigor. Everything is more demanding, it's more rigorous. So the standard is really asking for a lot. It encompasses a lot more to show mastery of that standard, okay? One other thing that I'd like to point you to, if you have any additional questions or if you just want to kind of look around and get more information, if you go to corestandards.org, they have a specific section for parents. This is adapted specifically from the What Parents Should Know portion of that, but they've got a lot of parent resources that you can look, and you can click by grade level and anything like that. So it's if you go to corestandards.org, and again, there'll be a tab for parents where you can look and get some more information. Okay, and I'll give you guys a second if you want to write that down.
When you say information, is it really like Common Core for Dummies? So we can help understand what our kids are actually doing?
Yeah, it does have some, I wouldn't say it's incredibly user-friendly. It's really a lot more of this is what the standard is, so at least you're familiar with that. But then I will point you to some more resources as to, you know, how you can break down those standards. Because it's just different. You know, I remember even just a few years ago going into a 5th grade classroom and they were doing division. I mean, I know how to divide, but they were doing division in a way that I hadn't seen, and it took a little bit to kind of, you know, get to my brain to adapt that way. So yeah, we will do some resources to show you that, okay? So again, going with that more rigorous thing, math is not just numbers anymore. In our assessments, we have really been used to in the past the multiple choice, but now they've really become increasingly more difficult. And even in math, you're looking at a lot of constructed responses, short answers, and a lot of explaining their thinking. So even if a student is really good at just math computation and can kind of do arithmetic quickly, they're really going to need to know how to explain their thinking, which is a little bit of a struggle for some of our students. Especially if we have a lot of, especially in our district, we have a lot of second language learners, and that's really difficult to be able to express their mathematical thinking in a language that might not be their native language. So they need to know, they just don't need to get the right answer, they also need to tell us why the answer is right. And sometimes, you know, our students are quick to say, well, because that's what it is, because I know it's right, because that's what I thought in my head, which is great, but, you know, we're gonna need to kind of pull a little bit more from them and ask them to explain how they're solving the problems. And that's a lot of just practicing, even as they're working, there might be a lot more talking than we're used to, because they're really having to try to verbalize so that they can eventually transfer that to a written answer on the test, okay? Another thing, so we want to explain to them how they're solving the problems, and then also multiple ways to solve math problems. So almost like that division example, lots of different ways, you know, that you can get to the right answer, and maybe trying a couple of different one of those, and having a discussion about it. And I always think back there to my parents when I do this, because my parents are originally from Peru, and in Latin America, you know, I remember going to school, and I went to school in Miami. I was born in the States, and I remember getting to long division, and I did it a certain way, and you know, a lot of Spanish-speaking and Latin American countries just had a different way of doing it. We arrived at the same answer, but had a different way of doing it. And I was mortified, because I was like, Mom, Dad, you're doing it wrong. Like, what is wrong with you? And they're like, it's the right answer. You know, they were just trying to show me a different way to get to the right answer. So it's just kind of funny how it's all come full circle. Now we are looking for those different ways to maybe arrive at the same answer. And we know that our kids, all our kids are going to be a little bit unique, and you know, what works for one student might not be the best strategy to give to another student. So we're just going to try to keep those things in mind. Okay, throughout the Common Core standards, there are 8 standards for student mathematical practice. Okay, so these are not grade level specific, these run K through 12. And what it is basically just some things to think about when we're solving math problems. So these, like I said, are going to be applicable K through 12. And they run through our Common Core standards. So we'll just go over them really briefly. Again, if you want more information on these, you can go to that Common Core site. It'll have kind of a little bit more in depth on each one, but this is just a nice graphic to show all 8. So the first one, make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. So again, this is just the idea that students are going to need to work a little bit more at arriving to an answer. And for us as parents, what is important is to really give them the time to arrive at that right answer. I know sometimes if a student gets stuck, we might be quick to jump in there and help them and show them how to do it. So it's really the idea of maybe just giving them a little bit more time, a little more wait time on our part to see if they can find something applicable to help them in solving the problem. And again, that's going to be K through 12, where they're going to be doing that, kind of looking for past experiences and past information to help them solve the current problem, okay? Number 2, reason abstractly and quantitatively. So this is the idea that we're trying to think of something that makes sense. So this is the idea before we have known story problems and then getting to the answer. Now something that as parents that we can do is we might give them a problem like 1/2 times 4 and have them come up with the story. So kind of the reverse of what we're normally used to. Because what this is they're going to be using their abstract reasoning to really think of a story that makes sense. So our little example says, I think he works out for half an hour, 4 days a week, how much this exercise does he do in a week, or something like that. So giving them an equation and then having them come up with a story problem, and that's gonna help them not be so scared of story problems when they see them, because they've created their own. So that's something that you can practice at home too. Number 3, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So again, this is just that math talk. If, one way of solving it, then having them listen to another way of solving it, or having them explain their reasoning. Model with mathematics. This one we're going to be hitting on a lot when we watch a short video, and we're also going to do a little make and take for you to take. So basically, the fact that we might need manipulatives and we might need things to be able to show them a certain concept. And so many of our children are visual learners. So this is incredibly important. It's not just this abstract concept, but also we're going to put something that they can touch and feel to really understand the concept. The 5th, is use appropriate tools strategically. So making sure to use the right tools. This comes up a lot in measurement. So the idea that if we are measuring someone's height, there's probably a tool that is more appropriate than another tool. Like you would probably, maybe would you use a measuring tape or would you use a scale to measure my height? There's certain things that are more appropriate than others. And so using the right tools, it comes up a lot in measurement and in geometry. Number 6, attend to precision. So this is one where we're checking our work, that's important, but also paying attention to units in math. Again, so much of it is presented in that story problem that we want to make sure that our kids are knowing that answers are not just numbers, they're coming in units. So for instance, in a story problem, it's something as simple as there are 5 blue balloons and there are 6 red balloons. How many balloons in total, or how many balloons in all? Kids are very quick to say, well, 11. And I always, when I taught the younger grades, I would say, well, 11 what? 11 elephants? And they'd say, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, you need to tell me the unit. That's an important part. And that goes all through K through 12, just knowing that the units are there. So making sure that when they're answering, even if it's just a simple answer, that they're really trying to put their answers in a complete sentence, and using those units is important. Number 7, look for and make use of structure. So these 10 frames come up a lot in the Common Core. And it's just the idea of showing students patterns or connections so that they know where this answer comes from, Yes, we would like for them to know it wrote 8 + 4 = 12. We want them to know that automatically, but we also want them to have the reasoning behind it. The fact that, if you put 2 of the 4 ones here, that makes a 10 represented by this 1, and then the other 2 ones are by themselves, making a 12. They might not be able to explain all of that every single time, but as long as they have that background, that they know what it represents. So yes, 8 + 4 = 12, but that means something besides just the numbers. And finally, look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. So just patterns or connections that they see. And this is a good one just to practice wherever they go, finding patterns out in the real world, in your house, in daily life. Grocery store is always a good one. For just ways to apply their mathematical thinking in the real world, So they know, I always used to, when I got in high school, I was, how can we use this in real life? When I was in algebra and things like that. So basically just showing them that math exists in the real world every day. We're not just learning this to pass a test. We use math every single day. So we're looking for those patterns. So again, this is just a brief overview of the 8. They carry through K through 12. So you're going to see them represented in different ways as your students get older. And you can find more information on that Common Core site. So we're going to keep those in mind. The other thing we want to talk about is that mathematical vocabulary. So much is now emphasized with them explaining their thinking. So we really want them to use the appropriate words in real life. And, if you have trouble and you might not know exactly what mathematical vocabulary is appropriate for your students, I would do 2 things. Number 1, ask your child's teacher. So maybe say, is there certain math vocabulary that they're working on that I can reinforce at home? And then the other site that is phenomenal for this is this site right here. It's nceSD.org. And I'll show you a little bit about what it does. It basically has math vocabulary. It's split up by grade levels. So if you click on your child's grade level, it'll print out a bunch of flashcards with mathematical vocabulary. So as an example, and I believe this was 3rd or 4th grade, and some of the words carry on through the grades. So for instance, array, you might see in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th vocabulary cards, but it will give you the word as well as a picture or some sort of visual to go along with the word. And it even goes further. So this is array, attribute, and behind even those positional words. So it'll have a lot there for you, but it even goes in further if you'd like to kind of have just different ones. You can print one out, for instance, added with just the word. So if maybe after your children are really familiar with it, maybe you're doing just the word and having them explain it to you, or maybe having them draw something that represents it. They'll also give you some that have, like we said, the word and that visual or that representation for them. And finally, they'll even go as far as doing the word, the visual representation, and then just a kid-friendly definition. So this might be a good way to start, especially too sometimes, as adults, we know what it is, but we even can't find the words to really, explain it to a child. So these little kid-friendly definitions are helpful for that. And I mean, there's just pages and pages and pages galore on that site, which is great, and they're broken up by grade level already. So even if you print them out and you talk to your child's teacher and they give you a couple, you can find those and maybe focus on those for a little while until you go on to the next thing, okay? So that's just a great site for you to have as a reference, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at a standard. In this workshop, what we do is we're going to look at a standard. We're going to see how it grows from grade to grade. So basically, this is the same standard. It's just expanded as the children get older. We're going to be talking about fractions, and that's what our little activity today will focus on as well, okay? So in 3rd grade, all of our standards are under strands, so kind of a bigger concept, and then the standards are individual standards under the concept. The concept is like the umbrella, and the standards are under the umbrella. So with fractions, the fraction standard for 3rd grade falls under the strand reason with shapes and their attributes. So that's kind of the overlying idea. And in 3rd grade, what we want students to do is partition shapes into parts with equal areas. So we want them to know that a fraction means that all the pieces have to be equal. And we want to express the area of each part as a unit fraction of the whole. So for example, a shape in 4 parts with equal area, we would describe each of the parts as 1/4 or 1/4 of the shape. And knowing that that is the notation, 1/4. So that's what they would be expected to do in the 3rd grade, okay? Any questions so far? Okay, now we're gonna see kind of how that grows in 4th grade. So we're really just working on identifying, and they can go, probably to about 1/16 or something like that in this one, in 3rd grade, pardon. Okay, in 4th grade, well, already a lot more words, right? So that's the first thing we notice. If you look at our kind of umbrella that it's under, we're going to extend the understanding of fraction equivalence and ordering, okay? So now we're going to be talking about not just fractions, not knowing what a fraction is, but also equivalent fractions. So knowing that 2/4 is going to be the same as 1/2, okay? So we're pushing them a little bit more, okay? Explaining why a fraction AB is equivalent to a fraction n times A over n times B. I have to throw an algebra in here already in the 4th grade. By using visual fraction models with attention to how the number and size of the parts differ, even though the 2 fractions themselves are the same size. So use this principle to recognize and generate equivalent fractions. So again, just knowing that if I have 2/4, visually seeing that it's going to be the same as 1/2. And it goes further. There's another standard that also falls into the same category, comparing 2 fractions with different numerators and different denominators by creating common denominators. So knowing which one is bigger and which one is smaller. And again, we're going to be using visual representations to do that today. Recording the results with appropriate symbols, so greater than, equal to, or less than, and justifying the conclusions. So again, that reasoning part, showing you with visuals, this one is bigger than this one because you can see here I have ordered them. So we've extended their learning on fractions really a lot in just a year now. 5th grade, here we go. Okay, 5th grade, again, lots of writing. We're going to use equivalent fractions as a strategy to add and subtract fractions. So 3rd grade, we want them to know what a fraction is and know that they're equal parts. 4th grade, we're comparing them and ordering them. By 5th grade, we want them to add and subtract them, okay? We're going to add them with unlike denominators, so you need to know which ones are equivalent denominators in order to get to this part. Oh, excuse me. And then solving word problems involving addition and subtractions of fractions referring to the same whole. Okay, using benchmark fractions and number sense of fractions to estimate mentally and assess the reasonableness of answers, okay? So the game that I brought for you today that we're going to do really will hit upon all of these. It's just a matter of where your student is. So you might be playing it really basically if you've got a 3rd grader and they're just starting out. If you have a 5th grader, we're gonna change the game a little bit to kind of get them where they need to be. Okay, so before we do that, we're gonna watch a really short little video. And again, that importance of having those visuals for our students is really gonna be key. There are some great videos on Vegas PBS. If you go to vegaspbs.org, you will find a lot of really good videos, or you can even just Google Vegas PBS. They've got a lot of really good videos that just are short clips that explain just different math concepts. So I believe this video is no more than 3.5 minutes, but it talks about equivalent fractions and shows them kind of in a cartoon format and something that they're going to be interested in. Another great place to look for these type of videos, obviously with mom and dad doing the looking, is YouTube. I mean, YouTube gets a bad rap a lot of times, but they've also got some great stuff, little clips. I am self-taught in a lot of computer software, for instance, by watching videos on YouTube. So there are some really great stuff, but again, obviously with mom or dad or an adult doing the searching, so they're not stumbling on things they shouldn't. But this is just a great place to start looking. So we're going to watch the video, keeping it in mind as we build our game, okay? The volume is a little bit low, but...
Can I help you? Some of my hydrogen batteries have run out, and I don't have enough power to get back to the camp. I need one of the 1/5 sizes and one of the 1/2 sizes. We can bring the batteries in a dust bug. Fine. Set the autosphere in the bug to sector 22, and it'll find me. Whoa! This battery pack isn't full. It has quarters and tenths.
But no halves or fifths.
What did Uncle Zach say? He wanted 1/2 size.
But there aren't any 1/2 batteries left.
He wanted a 1/5 size too, but there aren't any of those left either. Maybe we could use more or less of some other size. You asked Umbrella. I want to try something.
Here is what you need to know. Take one whole and divide it. Halves, quarters, fifths, or tenths. Put them back together, and they are wholes again. So one whole is the same as 2 halves, and the same as 4 quarters, and the same as 5 fifths, and the same as 10 tenths. And 1/2 is the same as 2 quarters, and the same as 5 tenths. And 1/5 is the same as 2 tenths.
Look, we don't have any 1/2 batteries, but 1/2 is the same as 2 quarters. So I'll just use them instead. And they fit, because 2 quarters are the same as 1/2. So that one's okay.
And we don't have any 1/5 batteries
1/5
is the same as 2/10. They fit too.
powered up and ready to go.
Okay. Again, so that little video, actually 3 minutes, but it sometimes in those 3 minutes, that video does a lot more than we could with 15, 20 minutes of trying to explain it to them. Because it's got the visual, you know, and it's something that will keep them engaged for those 3 minutes. So again, maybe watching a little video like this before playing the game that we're about to play would be a great way to kind of start and get them ready. So now we're going to do our game. We're going to be making some fraction kits. So I will give each of you an envelope. We're going to make them today, and then you're going to get to take home 2 games that go along with it that you can play with your kids at home. Okay. So what you're going to need is the envelope that I just gave you with the fraction bars. And this is something that if you want, you can make one today, and then we've got some extra. You can take one home and have your child make one too. So then you've got 2 sets or whatever it is. So inside, you will just see that your fraction kit has some just pieces of construction paper. So they're just strips of construction paper. They're what we're going to use as our fraction bars. So we are going to, now let me, it really doesn't matter which color you use to mean which, just as long, you know. I would just possibly, if you have more than one set, keep it consistent, just so they don't get confused in one set, you know, the half is green and then the other set it's the quarters, so that might be a little, if you're just doing more than one set. So what we're going to do is we are going to have our brown. I believe everyone has a brown. Our brown is going to act as our hole, so that one we're going to keep whole. It's also going to, another way to refer to it is as our game board when we play. And then what we're going to do is our purple. If you want to fold your purple in half, so all we're going to do is fold it in half, and there should be scissors on your table. If you want to just fold it in half, we're going to cut it, and then the most important part probably is to make sure that you label them. So we're going to be labeling them with 1/2, 1/2. Okay, so and I'm going to put them maybe over here, just so I'll go through these as you're working, just so we don't run out of time. Okay. Now, after you do your purple, you're going to do fourths for in green. So your fourths will be green. So again, and obviously you guys are adults, and you know that you can fold it in half and then in half again to get fourths. But that might be something that you have to tell your students, you know. So again, just that talking it out and or have them explain to you, well, how do you think we can make fourths, you know? That's going to be really key, is explaining their mathematical thinking. So, you know, you might say, okay, we're going to fold our green bar in half, and then we have halves. If we fold it again, we'll have fourths.
Have they done something like this in class? I mean, is this...
Yes, so this activity comes from, I believe it's Marilyn Burns, who's kind of one of the math gurus. That, you know, she has a lot of things. So, yes, a lot of these activities, maybe they have experience with it or something similar. What math curriculum do you have here?
They pull from Engage New York, Motivation Math, from whatever they can, but regardless of if they've done it in class or not, it's certainly something when they're doing fractions
sure.
in class that you can just reinforce it.
Absolutely. So I'm sure too, and really all the curriculum that's used now with Common Core involves manipulation of things. So they might not have played this game, but like she said, it's going to be helpful, and they've played things similar, or they've done things with manipulatives that might be similar. So that's our fourth. Let me see what color is next. Okay. We're going to do our 1/8 piece in yellow. So again, letting them know if we fold in half, and then in half again, we will again, having them label it would be something that I would definitely advise, just so they're practicing that notation of 1/8 as 1/8. Again, with 1/4, maybe using 1/4, but also 1/4, so there are, you can also relate that to math, how there are 4 quarters in $1, and it's 1/4 of $1, which is why we call it a quarter. So just kind of looking for those connections, and they might be coming up with some of that on their own, Oh, 1/4, is that why we call, money a quarter? And so you can kind of talk about that. So really just that math talk is really important. And then finally, I know you're still working, so our red pieces are going to be our 1/16. Okay. And again, depending on where your student is, even if you have some younger ones, maybe with a first grader or second grader, maybe you're only going up to 1/8 and just kind of playing with that and doing some things with that for a while, that's fine, We don't ever want to frustrate them, so we always want to build upon it. If they're ready, by all means continue, but if you see them getting frustrated, maybe scale back and just do some things with a few things. Okay. And finally, as you're doing 1/16, the last thing that we are going to need is our fraction die. And so, one already made for you. That is that yellow piece of paper that you've got. And all it is once it's cut out, if you fold it together with just a little Scotch tape, it'll be your die. You have 2 dice, which is nice. Another thing that I've seen people do for this game is if they already have just a set of dice or something, just those little white circle stickers, just putting them on top of just a regular dice and writing the fractions, so it's is another way you can do it. So it's totally up to you. On your instructions for the game, it will also exactly show you what the faces should be marked. So 1 face with 1/2, 1 face with 1/4 or 1/4, 2 of the faces with 1/8, and 2 of the faces with 1/16. And again, if you've got little ones, maybe you make another one that doesn't go all the way to 16. Maybe you make one that just goes up to 8s, and you kind of do it that way. Okay? And so as you're building that, like I said, all those instructions are in the game. The game that we're going to play today, just to kind of get some practice with it, is Cover Up. So those instructions are there for you. On the back is kind of the opposite or the reverse version of that game. I believe it's called Uncover. So again, maybe you're just starting with one game, but we wanted to give you the resources so you've got them to kind of do some things. And you could probably even come up with your own if you find some other ways to use the fractions. I'm just gonna grab one. And as you're building your set, I'm just gonna go around and give you an extra set for you to take home. And like I said, if you want to have your kids make one of their own and go through the procedure of making it with them, that might be helpful too. And then just having 2 sets might also be helpful for you. Okay. Okay, so really briefly, I know you're still finishing up. The instructions for the game are there. They're pretty simple. What you're going to do is you're going to take turns rolling the fraction die. And on your turn, the fraction that comes up on the die will tell you what size piece to place on the game board. So for instance, if I roll and it's 1/16, I would take my 1/16 piece and I'm going to put it right on top of my whole or my brown game board. Okay? Once I do that, the end is, my turn is over. But number 3 is really important. It says, check with your partner to be sure he or she agrees with what you did. So that's going back to one of those mathematical standards of reasoning. So you've got that accountability piece, which is nice. Once you finish, you say done, and you pass the die to your partner. They're going to go do the same thing. And they're going to have 1/8, so they're going to put 1/8. Now where it gets a little bit tricky is kind of near the end, okay? Because you have to cover your fraction strip, your 1 hole or your game board exactly. So if you roll something that's too big, if I have my game board just about filled up, so maybe I have my fourths here and here, okay? So I really only need 1/4 or to be done. But then what if I roll a half? Well, that's too big, it's not gonna fit. So what do I do then? I cannot go. I have to skip a turn and wait until I roll the exact fraction that I need. So they're really having to use their reasoning to know what they kind of need at the end, okay? If you look on the back, and that's kind of the first game, so I would play that first for a bit. The uncover one is now one where they're going to have to be trading out some pieces and doing those equivalent fractions, okay? So this one again is just the basic one, but is a way to get started, especially if you've got 3rd graders. But you can always kind of kick it up a notch, okay? You can also do, really just have them maybe you don't play with the fraction, but maybe you pull out one and they have to give you an equivalent fraction, okay? So lots of different ways to just, and it's just construction paper and some tape. So it just goes to show you don't need a lot, and it can be engaging, and it can be something that your students will really enjoy. So we've got these 2 games for you. What we'll do now is, let me check the time. We'll give you about 5 minutes to just kind of try to play it. You know, kind of get started. You can play with people at your table. You can kind of just practice by yourself. And then we'll kind of wrap up, and I'll give you a couple more resources before you leave. And then we'll get some of your feedback on some different things that maybe we can do here in the future. Okay. Put these here. And this isn't an envelope. My suggestion would probably be a Ziploc bag. Because I know that I would probably lose the pieces. This is just, again, sometimes though it's what you got. Now, also when you're cutting out the strips, that might be another opportunity for them to, you know, measure and see how big each piece. If you have a 12-inch piece of construction paper, then if we need to get this many pieces or this many strips, how wide, there's another mathematical opportunity. So just kind of really looking for those things wherever you can will be really beneficial for you. And we've talked to teachers too that have said sometimes they like these paper ones better because if they're doing it in a class, these are a lot quieter than traditional, you know? So, a little bit better, but.
Dollar Tree sells foam ones about that same size. Except
Sure, and that way you can just cover them up with either a sticker or
Write it
even
with a
just paper
Sharpie.
tape. Yeah.
Right on the
Sharpie, lots of things. Dollar Tree has some great little math things that you can use for math. Dollar Tree's a good spot. And we're going to send all of this over to you. I have the last week's presentation as well, so it'll be up on your school website, I believe. That's what they've been doing. So if you know anyone else who maybe is interested, we'll put up all these resources. We'll scan in the games as well, and that kind of stuff. So that'll just be a place. have those cute little football helmet tape dispensers. And I know while you're working on that, just, I'm gonna refer to your, let me just grab one really quick. I'm gonna refer to your handout over here. If you took one or if you wanna grab some more, please by all means. These, are something that the district puts out. It's called Partners for Achievement. And what it is kind of a snapshot of the grade level, at that specific semester. So we're in our second semester now that we've gone 2 semesters, versus trimesters. But basically, for instance, 3rd grade, it'll say semester 2, and it's really just a snapshot of what they're doing in reading, writing, and math at school at that point of the year. And then ways that you can help at home, okay? So they have one available for every grade, and I believe it even, if I remember correctly, they even have some for secondary. So if you've got middle schoolers and high schoolers, they have it as well. And just some really quick little tips, you know, maybe putting this up on the fridge or something like that. They also provide it in Spanish, so it's just a great resource to have. It also has a number at the bottom for the department that puts it out, or if you have any additional questions, the elementary literacy and the math departments can help you if you have any more specific questions. But this is just kind of a nice little snapshot, just a quick glimpse of what they're doing at school. So we like those. Previously, you may have gotten something that's called On Common Ground, which was kind of the same thing before we adopted the Common Core Standards. So this is very similar, it's just with the Common Core Standards already in there. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Right.
Okay, so. No, I'm telling you, Ziploc bags, is the way to go. Okay, so, we did our fraction kits and we're doing pretty good on time. You're more than welcome to play or stay and play. I just wanna go over, one of our last slides and then I can leave it up on my contact information. And I've got some cards that I'll leave out as well, but just some general things of what you can do to help. Some basic things, but sometimes things that we kind of forget or we don't get into the routine of. So at home, really setting up a homework area. Just a place where your student can go and kind of have just some focused time. And it doesn't really matter where it is. It could be their bedroom, it could be you know, kitchen table or whatever it is. But just kind of a place where it's sort of minimal distractions, not, you know, right by the television or anything like that. You know, kind of maybe getting the little siblings out. You know, I had this brilliant idea. I got my son all set up. I mean, he's just in pre-K, but he wanted to do, you know, a little practice his letters. So I said, okay, I set him up. But then his 2-year-old sister was there all the time. So I was like, oh, have to be mindful of getting the little sibling out and that kind of thing. Just listening to your child, so asking those questions. What are you doing in math? Can you explain it to me a little bit? Encouraging the good study habits, so limiting distractions, being available to help. Routine time. This is a big one that we talk about a lot because a lot of parents, we've gotten the feedback, they want them to come home and then do their homework. So it's done, it's over with, they know that they've gotten it done. And really this routine time might be different depending on the child. You may have a child that needs to go home and needs to run around for a little bit, needs to go out in the yard or go outside and just kind of blow off some steam for half an hour, 45 minutes, or maybe they need to eat first and then they can focus. So it really doesn't matter what the time is, just as long as it's kind of a routine is the important part. Another math resource, the Khan Academy. This is another place to get those videos. And this is a site that I know some teachers use as well. It's kind of great because you can sign up as a teacher or as a parent, but this is another place to find videos or kind of those little tutorials for you if maybe there's a concept that you're not quite sure how to explain. This could be another one. You do have to sign up for an account, but it's totally free. It's just, you know, register with your email address and that kind of thing. So that Khan Academy one is really good. The homework hotline is still offered. Some people think it's gone away, but it's still there. The homework hotline is great. It's on Vegas PBS, so they do show it on Channel 10. Not exactly sure of the time, but it's on there, and they still take phone calls, and they also have a website. So if there's something that maybe your kid wants to call in with, it's still available, and they have some great resources there, as well as on the site, so you can go on the homework hotline site. But these are two really great resources that you can use. Again, this one is particularly for videos, and this one goes all the way up to high school. So it's got some videos on some tougher concepts and some kind of, you know, higher grade level things, like, I mean, it goes into your algebra and your geometry and those kind of things up in the secondary. So if you've got older kiddos, or if you know, or just when your kiddos get there, you'll be prepared. And then finally, what I'm gonna leave you with is my contact information. So again, I'm with FACES, the Family and Community Engagement Services Department. This is my email address, which is probably the easiest way to reach me, and it'll be on my card as well that I'll leave over by the end. And part of what I do, part of what Becky and I both do, we come out to schools, do parent workshops and that kind of thing, but we also run family engagement centers. There's 8 throughout the school district. I happen to be at the one at Elaine Wynn Elementary School, but these centers, while located on school campuses, are open to any parent in the district. So if you have something that you might need to go in to one of the centers for, you totally can. So that information is here, and that's my phone number there, and my address is on my business card. So if, you know, for certain things that you need to come in, and we offer computer lab time, you know, any sort of community resource and referral is available for you. We've got additional kind of academic things that you can do at home available that we can give to you. And just anything you need. We also do a lot of, if you know anyone who is learning English as a second language, we have resources for that as well. That's a big part of
The closest
of what
one
we
here
do.
is Diskin?
Yes.
Diskin.
So I'm at Elaine Wynn, which is not too far. There is one even closer to you guys, which is Pat Diskin Elementary, who also has a family engagement center. And if you just call the school number and ask for the family center, they will transfer you right to them. So yeah, Pat Diskin is your closest one, but again, you can go to any of the 8 throughout the district, throughout the city. So I'll leave this slide up. What we do ask is if you just fill out that evaluation, and it might not be a specific question, but if there's something else that you like or that you're interested in, that, you know, you would like for us to come and present to you guys, or some different ideas that you have for some follow-up workshops, we'd be happy to do it. We just run it by your administration and kind of figure out a time. That's another thing, if you think that there's times or days that work better for parents, by all means put that information on there. And that's kind of how we can improve our program in that way. So just let us know. That's really all we need from you. And then we'll be around if you have any questions or anything. But we thank you again for coming and spending your Friday morning with us. We appreciate it. And anything that you need, again, I'm going to have my business card out, but just give us a call. Because a lot of what we do is help parents. Our teachers are wonderful, but they're also spread really, really thin sometimes. So it's not a lot of times that they don't want to help, or that they just might not have the time to pull those sort of resources. We do. We have that time. That's kind of what we do. So by all means, you know, you can ask those sorts of questions to us. And we can also get in contact with your child's teacher, and they can give us maybe some more specifics on what they need, depending on where they're at. So let me grab my cards. And they'll say a different department on it because we've switched departments so many times, but all the contact information is the same, so that hasn't changed.
We're getting our own website, right?
Yes, so the FACES department, our website is under development right now. So we will have a website with lots of these sorts of resources for you. I'll leave a couple here at the table too if you want to take some for anyone that you know or think might be interested. But yeah, our website is currently under development, so we're hoping to have that up and running very soon, to have a lot of these resources already loaded up for you.
Oh, because I need the title. I don't remember the title.
Thank you again.